On the program today, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, has reacted to claims by President Bola Tinubu of Nigeria that his government inherited liabilities from his immediate predecessor, Muhammadu Buhari. He questions why Tinubu failed to give details of the liabilities inherited from the previous government. We will also shift gears at some point to Kenya, where President William Ruto said his government's focus is long-term and for the greater good of the people, urging his cabinet not to fear to make decisions that are in the best interest of the country. Welcome to the conversation. I am Dakbo Adigboyi. Let's talk. Let's begin in Nigeria, where President Bola Tinubu, while meeting with the Vice President, country programs of the Islamic Development Bank, Mansur Muhtar, in Mecca, Saudi Arabia last week, said his administration inherited serious liabilities when it took over power in May to the 29th of this year. Now reacting, Peter Obi, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, in a statement on Thursday, questioned why the president failed to give details of the liabilities inherited from the previous government. For him, whatever the administration inherited should be made known to the general public, saying a responsible government needs to be transparent and accountable. Well, to shed more light on this particular matter, I'm joined on the show at this time by Ejike Chude, a public affairs analyst, and also Sheriff Adekoya, who is a social commentator. Thank you so much for your time, gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you. It's actually Achike Chude.
Achike, thank you so much for that. Achike, well, I would like to start with you. Is the government, by law, obliged to actually reveal whatever assets or liabilities it incurred from the previous administration to the public?
Well, I don't know. It's a strange question when we try to understand what it means to run a government. The
reason why I asked is this, right? I mean, most times when you have conversations like this, we've seen in the past where governments would revert back to the law, saying that they are not obliged by any item in the Constitution on certain matters. So in order to sort of set the ball rolling, does the law compel the administration of the day to reveal to the public whatever assets or liabilities it's inherited from the previous government?
Yes, the law does that. The law, because the government does not belong to any particular person. The government belongs to all of us. And again, the question we should ask is, the monies that accrue to the country, does the government have any obligation to bring it out in the public space? We are talking about the revenues of the country. We are talking about also what the government intends to spend for the year. So it's a matter of law that when you're talking about the medium-term, economic framework, obviously the government has a duty. It's a matter of law. The budgeting and the process of budgeting is a matter of law. And so any deviation, for instance, from the budget itself in terms of implementation is something that should be punishable by law. But we know that the breach is what we witness most of the time. So there is an obligation, because you're talking about a democracy, government of the people, for the people, by the people. You're talking about the need for transparency and accountability. You're talking about the way government monies are being spent. That is why the ICPC was set up. That is why the EFCC was set up also. And so that government expenditure, as agreed upon by the legislature, based on the proposal to the legislature by the executive, that every government expenditure must be subject to public scrutiny and the probe. Of course, you also know that we have a freedom of information law, which makes it very, very clear that government should not be run as a secret court. that the dealings of government will have to be done in the public space. And so the government cannot make that kind of claim that they are under no obligation to tell us. After all, when monies are recovered, for instance, the Abacha loot, we are told how much was recovered. And then organizations like SERAP and others have gone ahead to say, no, it's not enough. We need to know how you're going to spend this money. And the simple reason is because the money belongs to the people. It does not belong to the president. It does not belong to the governors and the legislators. They are only holding office on our behalf. And so the need for transparency is absolutely essential if you want to run a democracy that it must incorporate the body of the people in the way government business is being done.
All right, I would like to go to you, Sheriff. I mean, your reaction to this particular, will I call it, inquiry right now. I mean, we understand that the government is responsible to the people because that's a social contract. But are there limits to what the government can reveal to the general public?
Well, good evening, and thank you for having me. Well, there are conversations that really do not need any level of contest. The government has the responsibility upon itself and the people it leads to explicitly tell and narrate what goes on within and around the government. However, there are responsibilities. Some may not be explicitly declared by the law. I know quite a number of lawyers and legal luminaries have said it time without number that you have administrative decisions sometimes where you have the freedom to decide, but at least to an extent, what may be not very smooth. So what I'm trying to say in a nutshell is that the government holds the citizens the right to know, but at the same time, the oath of confidentiality is critical. We know there is the bill that talks about the information and the freedom of information bill has been passed, and that guides how we interact. Even at that, you really do not need to throw every piece of information to the streets. Some may trigger unhealthy reactions, but at the same time, anything that needs to be questioned, that should be known by the citizens, that is governed and protected by the law, must be made known. It is not a secret court. No government has the right to hide the information about us away from us. It is democracy, the government by the people, for the people, and within the people. So yes, we just have to make it happen.
All right, let's get into a bit of specifics right now. Obi claimed, that's Peter Obi, he claimed that the ruling party took the country's debt profile, talking about the economy now, from 12.6 trillion naira in 2015 to about 87 trillion naira in 2023 when they left office. Of course, that's the previous administration, without improving much, particularly when it comes to indices of development, being education, health, poverty eradication, and security. Now, my question to you is this, and I'll start with you, Sheriff. I mean, does this particular allegation, to a large extent, carry weight? And if at all, to what extent?
Well, it does. It does. Peter Obi has gone away from the foray or the space of a mere citizen. He has weight, and everything that comes from him has got weight. He has followers, and he has his own assertions. The only concern is that we should not, all in the name of making our views known, eat up the polity. The elections are over. Politics should have gone to the back seats. Right now, we should be looking at governance, and everybody can actually be a social watchdog for a better governance. The figures are not, they are not probably what it looks like. You understand that most of these figures are computed on the basis of foreign exchange or forex. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
the bulk of this figure calculated.
Sheriff, are you there?
About 5, 6. Can you hear me?
Yes, we seem to lost you a while ago, but I think we can hear you now. Please go ahead.
Okay, so what I was saying is, don't forget the fact that the bulk of these debts, especially the external debts, were captured in the forex, USD most times. So if you were owing $1 billion 5 years ago, and you're still owing same $1 billion 5 years ago, if that is going to be computed in Naira, 5 years ago, it probably would be around 400 and something billion, between 500 or about 500 billion. But right now, you know what that is? That's close to $1 billion. So you understand that taking the debt profile from 12 point something to 80 something trillion does not really translate to the fact that more money has been taken. Yes, more money has been taken, but that is not the only single indicator that is responsible for that gap. That on the side. Quite a number of things would come to play when we discuss the economy and how the economy has functioned. The government of the day has taken quite an audacious step by trying to unleash two of probably the toughest policies, the unification of forex with the naira and the subsidy removal. We've seen the effect. The effect may not really be that welcoming for now, but on the reverse, the effects to a very large extent has recorded quite a milestone of positivity, because if not, we would probably be in need to seek or to source funds to pay subsidy. The removal has not started yielding very certain effects, but that does not mean we need to write it off. So what Peter Obi said as regards the debt, yes, the figures may be correct, but the assertion, the takeout, the insight, the translation may not directly mean what it is. So all I just have to say is, well, Nigeria is a country of many opinions, where an average Nigerian knows about the economy much more than those who are professional economists. You know, out of concern, Nigeria is a family affair. Out of concern, it's our country. We've got no other country, so we need to say, but the bottom line that I will close this response with is, whatever we have to say, objectivity and seeing things from another people's lens that makes it a balanced narrative must always be in the forefront of our
okay, now I would like to pick you on objectivity, but this time I want to move to Chude. Now, Chude, let's look at, all of what is happening in Nigeria at the moment, particularly some of the claims, by Peter Obi, given the economy and some of the policies the new administration, economic policies, that is, that the new administration, has put in place to sort of revive the economy. Now, in terms of results, generating results, or it looking promising, talking about the policies, would you say that these policies are somewhat in line towards ensuring that Nigeria heads towards progress and, of course, being a debt-free nation?
Let me just say this. I would agree with Sheriff in the summation of Peter Obi's current profile. He's not just any ordinary Nigerian anymore. His words have weight. But I do not agree when he talks about the elections being over and that it is now time to not to play politics. I think he made an allusion to that. But this is exactly the time to play politics. This is exactly the time for effective opposition, because that is what the opposition does. What he is doing is what the opposition does. What he's doing is what the APC did for the, 15 years or 19 years that the PDP was in power, not the APC.
But should some will say that sometimes it's more of a distraction than even addressing the reality on ground?
It is not a distraction. The responsibility of the opposition is to play opposition.
So what does opposition do, basically?
Yeah, what
you said the responsibility of opposition is to play opposition. What is that?
Allow me, please. What an opposition does is what the word says it is. It is opposed to the government of the day. It is opposed to the government of the day because it believes that it has a better, insight of what is going on in government and how to achieve good governance. That is why they are there in the opposition, waiting in the wings. The APC waited in the wings and took advantage of it. They opposed the PDP on the issue of insecurity, on the issue of the economy, on the issue of corruption in the country. And so whatever the PDP did that time, they lampooned it and they said that is why Nigeria is where it is. And that is why they ran for election for the purpose of removing the PDP from power so that they could give better governance to the people of Nigeria. So that's what an opposition does. So any opposition that is not effective, that does not do this with diligence and with seriousness, is not an effective opposition. Democracy, proper democracy, cannot thrive in the absence of opposition. So that is exactly what I'm saying.
I get you, but is there a limit to this?
Yeah.
Is there a limit to
no limit. As long as you oppose on the basis of the law, within the ambit of the law, the Constitution gives you recognition to play the part of opposition, because the Constitution is aware that it is only through the distillation of ideas, it is only through the disagreements of ideas and ideologies and all that you can get the best. It's like a synthesis, antithesis, and then a thesis, antithesis, and a synthesis. That is what an opposition, effective opposition, does. So we should never pray for a time when we do not have proper opposition in this country. And so they are doing, P2B is doing what he should do. And what we should be saying is that he should do more. Because what he's trying to do is to appeal to Nigerians. To say, look, these people promised you things that they are going to give you this, but this is what you're getting. But we are in a better position to do this. And it should not just be the P2B and the Labour Party. It should be the PDP. It should be the African Alliance. It should be all the other political parties. Because the future of this country, the democratization of the political space in this country is dependent on effective opposition. Otherwise, dictatorship sets in. And we have seen what dictatorship has been able to do. And that's why people became worried when others were leaving the other political parties to join the APC that had just won governance. And Nigerians became worried, because if you have a one-party state, it is dangerous for government, because you don't have that effective opposition that keeps the incumbent government on its toes. So any attempt to say that when an opposition person makes a statement that is verifiable, that is clear to everybody, that is backed up with facts and data, that it is hitting the polity, I think it's an attempt to blackmail such a person and such Nigerians. There's nothing like hitting the polity when you're speaking the truth.
Okay, let's...
But let me just say this.
Okay.
This is not something, P2B is coming a little bit late in this. Nigerians have been talking about it even before P2B made this conversation. And that's why I said that Sheriff was right when he said that P2B's profile is not like that of the ordinary Nigerians. We have been talking about this, but it has not been amplified until P2B talked about it. So it is the truth that the last government, in terms of misgovernance of the political space in this country, the last government did a lot of havoc. And that is what Nuhu Ribadu is talking about. But can Nuhu Ribadu exonerate himself? Can the present administration exonerate itself? Because it is APC to APC. When the PDP left power, for years they kept on telling us how PDP ruined Nigeria. So can they now tell us how APC ruined Nigeria in the past 8 years of the Buhari administration? So these are some of the issues. But truths have been spoken. You are talking about of course, no Ribadu is not by the action and activities of the APC. They are what no Ribadu is saying is being, is giving us, we have the impression that he's not telling the truth. Because if you say that Nigeria is bankrupt, how can you spend 160 million naira, and that is the point of this trying to make, another Nigerians have been making, on a single car for legislatures? How can you spend 5-point-something billion naira on a yacht, even though that has been cancelled? How can you spend all of this? So it's the same of the same. The way they have lived in the past, from 1999 to date, especially in the last 8 years, is the way the politicians have continued to live, as if there's no tomorrow. They spend our money anyhow they want, and then when things are difficult, they say, look, let us embark on reform, let us remove subsidy, and let us remove all this and all that. So these are part of the issues, and that there are claims that you cannot, Buhari made $12-point-something billion on ground. By the time he left a debt profile of around 55 billion, and the Tinubu administration has continued to borrow. So when you're talking like 80-something trillion naira, it is the PDP, the APC, that has borrowed, indebted us by as much as 70% of what the PDP also left on ground. So there's nothing like hitting the polity. If the truth has to be spoken,
Trude, I'm just going to give you some time.
Polity, then let the truth be spoken.
I'm just going to, of course, leave you for now, just give you some time. But I would like to go to you, Sheriff. I mean, would you like to react to some of the things that Trude said concerning being an opposition and not hitting the polity? Before, of course, we get into specifics like the economic policies the current administration is actually, implementing at the moment to sort of mop up some of the problems, economic problems the country is facing, and also the issue of transparency and accountability. Let's take your reaction, Sheriff.
Well, it's positive and it's beautiful that Trude agreed with me that I said Peter Obi has moved from just anybody on the street to a notable Nigerian that has always alluded to. So that's good. I would just want to quickly correct, a notion when he said the job of the opposition is to oppose the government of the day. No, I disagree. I disagree because the job of the opposition does not allow that they object everything the government does. If you do that, you are trampling upon the responsibility of both the opposition and the party in government. This is not the narrative of for or against. This is a comparative analysis of what should be done and what not should be done. Okay, eating it straight. The job of the opposition is not to oppose the government, because if the government does the right thing, would you still go ahead and say, because I need to oppose you, I will still castigate that? No, you do not castigate the right thing when it is being done. So what the opposition is expected to do is to be the loudest, the strongest, the most objective voice amongst the list of the social and the economic watchdogs. So you must always be abreast of the information. That was why I used the term objectivity. So, and when he said this is the time to play politics, I understand where it's coming from, and I appreciate his objectivity. I appreciate his tendency to deliver sincerity in his narrative. But yeah, a few words can become mold of stain on the plate of your discussion. For instance, when you said the job is to oppose, and the second thing when you said the time to play politics is now, no. You do not play politics by being an objective social stroke, economic watchdog. Objectivity suppresses politics. We all know that in this part of the world, our own definition of politicking and politics is still far from what you have in several texts.
Okay.
You read quite a number of books. So what you capture when you say we need to play politics, it sends another dimension of definition. So what you have is that politics must take the back seat, Nigeria takes the front seat, and social political watchdog services takes the center stage. So when the government does something, we must analyze, scrutinize, and lend our voice. Objectivity must not be lost in doing that. If we do that,
all right, I guess your point is I guess your point is taken, but because you're pressed with time, you would react to it, but also quickly. There's also the issue of responsible governance, which of course is part of the things Peter Obi highlighted, and also transparency and accountability in government. Do we see that play out in the current administration, at least from what we've observed?
Let me just concede to Sheriff. Let me just concede to him that I agree with him when he says that, opposition parties, when there's a basis for them to support the government, they should. If the country is at war, for instance, you would expect that you will not expect an opposition party to say that they oppose to the federal government. At that point in time, there's a matter of existence of the Nigerian state. And so the opposition usually comes together. So it is not every time that I agree. But don't forget that the people who will judge the opposition and people who enjoy the government, it's not the opposition itself or the government, it's the ordinary people. Because they are all trying to play to win the affection and the love of their people, because of the election. So in an election, it is the people that will determine whether an opposition party has been effective enough or whether the government itself has been effective enough. It depends on how well the opposition does its job. So one, I'm not saying that, yes, but I must maintain that their job is to provide alternatives. Maybe I should have even used that word. In opposition, you provide alternatives to whatever it is that the government is doing. You feel you can do it better. Now you're talking about, transparency and accountability and responsibility in government. Obviously, that is what is required. But when a government that allows a situation where legislatures are buying cars of 160 million, when you have told the people to cut down on their expenses, when you have told people that you know that they are in pain and that things are not easy, it's not a government that you can say is responsible. Now we agree that the National Assembly is not under the purview or the control of the president or the presidency. But the presidency can assert certain levels of influence and control over the National Assembly, for instance, to say, look, this thing you're doing, it is not at this time. But don't forget that the presidency went ahead and did the same thing, budgeting 1.5 billion naira for the office of the First Lady, which is not even a constitutional office in the first place. Gani Fahmi proved that several times in the courts of this country.
Okay, we're seriously pressed for time. Yeah. We're seriously pressed for time. I sincerely apologize. We would have loved to, of course, continue the conversation, but we are pressed for time. I would like to say a big thank you, gentlemen, for, of course, being a part of the conversation at this time. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.